Okay, folks, first thing you need to do is get your tools together. A couple of Phillips head screwdrivers, some tweezers, picks if you have them, and a needle nose pliers. First thing we're going to do is replace that front belt. And to do that, you open up the door, you lift on the bottom of this lip here, and that cover comes right off. Next, you're going to want to take off the main case. There are 4 bolts on the sides here, and then a 5th one right here in the middle on the back. You want to do this pretty early because it's very easy to drop your bolts and springs and other little parts in here. So with that off, you'll be able to shake your unit around a little easier and figure out where those things have gone. Next, what we're going to do with this little door off, with the cover off, is take out these 4 Phillips head screws that holds in this, basically this frame. What we're going to end up doing is take off this plate in order to get to the belt back there. And it's useful to take this off because that one little bolt up there, this one little bolt, is just easier to get at when you don't have this in the way. What I've done here is I've removed the bolts on the left, and on the right side there's a little arm, this arm that stays, basically it stays in that right in that bracket to ease the door back and forth. That just stays right in there if you want it to. Now my little spring came out. I'll just be sure to replace him right here on this arm before we go and put everything back together. He goes right there. Next, we're going to have to pull out that bolt right there. And when I work on this plate, I usually will turn the whole cassette deck upright because there's a lot of small pieces and gravity is not on your side when you're attacking this from, basically from this angle. All right, there's the bolt. Now we're going to take that out. Now with that bolt out, this whole plate will come right off. Be very gentle when you take that off. And also be incredibly careful with this spring right there. That spring is just being held on by gravity right now because the unit is on its end. But if you're not careful, that thing can just tip right off, go underneath, under the circuitry here, and you'll have to shake this thing around trying to figure out where it went. Now the belt you're going to replace is this one right there. It sits between, I don't even know what this is, this wheel and this wheel here. So the way I was able to get mine off, the old belt off, was I used either a pair of chopsticks, or I have this basically hooked pick that I can get under there with, and then just pry that off of this wheel, and then it comes off really simply off this one too. So whatever you have around the house, maybe a couple of picks, or basically you could use screwdrivers too if they were small enough. Just make sure you get over probably the bigger one first, and then move it over to that one. And then once it's in place, you can see how by rotating this wheel, the other one's moving. So that one is working well. Now that you've replaced that, let's put this thing back together. We'll get your plate, that side up. Falls right back in place there, and now we have to get at that tiny bolt hole again. Okay, this is tricky, especially with one hand, but if you can get your bolt in there, maybe work it around a little bit. Be very careful not to dump it down a hole and go chasing after it. It's pretty dark in there, but if we can get the right light here, you can see it's sitting in there really flush now. And that spring that was on this side, hidden underneath here, that's basically creating tension to keep this plate pushed towards the front. And that's it. All right, once you got that bolt back in there, right up there, we're gonna take this plate, and these two knobs here are basically going to fit into these slots right down there. And they just sit in there basically. Once those are in, now you have to put in the little bolts on this side. But first, don't forget your spring. I totally forgot about that. And once you have those 4 bolts on there and the arms in place, you can just slide this door over top. If you took it off, it snaps right into place. To remove the second belt, the larger belt, this was my larger belt, by the way. That's the condition it was in when I took it out of here. The larger belt lives right there. Right there. And it's kind of a pain to get to. So the first thing that I do is compress these tabs on this plastic pin, whatever this is, whatever you'd call that. I'd compress these and then lift up the circuit board to try to get that, to try to wiggle it out of place. And there's also one right there. And there's one screw right there you'll have to remove. With those three out of the way, you can move this a little bit. It'll give you just enough room to really get under there. Okay, so the way this works is coming in from the back here, you can see this plate is being held on by a few screws. Let's see here. There's one. That one, that one, and that one right there. Now once you've removed or loosened these screws enough, this plate will come away from this pulley down here. And it will give you enough space right in between. Let's see here, I don't want to block it for you. It will give you enough space between the plate and this round pulley to shimmy your belt through. In order to get your old belt out of there, you could even just cut it. It's probably so loose on there that it's not really being held on this pulley by much. So you could just take a scissors, snip it, and then pull it out because you won't be using that one again. So basically what you would do is you'd have your belt, and having loosened this plate away from that pulley, you could lower it down in there and sneak it right in between there. Once you can get it below that, you can loop it around the larger pulley and then use maybe a pick to hook it underneath, just to hook it right underneath the belt, and then put it around this pulley there. It's quite a task, but in order to do that, and I'm not going to go through all of the steps just because I've already done it, but what you'll need to do is you'll need to fully remove this screw right there. That's a longer one. It connects this plate to this post. Remove this one completely. Remove that one completely, and that'll give you a lot of wiggle room. This one's a bit shorter than this one here. Now with those two removed, there might be a better way of getting at it, but that bolt or that little screw is so, it's just awkwardly placed, and there's a lot of cables here. I didn't want to cut any of these cable ties. So what I did was I basically lifted this up, came underneath here, and was able to get that last screw just loosen maybe halfway. You can get enough leverage, so this is what I'm doing. I'm coming in underneath all of those circuit boards and just turning that a little bit. If you get it out halfway, you can remove this plate, or at least bring it away enough for you to get your belt through there. Okay, so once you've got the new belt on there, you're gonna tighten down. You're gonna tighten down this bolt all the way. The longer bolt, longer screw goes right there, and then the shorter screw goes right in here into this hole. And once you've tightened up those, you can find these clips. And then reinstall a screw right there. You'll probably have a few screws lying around. It's the one with the flange around the head, almost like a built-in washer. And then once that board is securely fastened down, you can put on the cover.